Contract labor and full-time labor get talked about like it's just a staffing choice. It isn't. It's an operating decision, and it shapes how your business behaves when things get tight. Most people frame this as a cost conversation. What's cheaper, what's more flexible, what scales faster? That's the wrong place to start. So in this video, I want to walk through the real difference between contract labor and full-time labor, how each one changes the way your business runs day to day, and why the wrong mix quietly creates problems that don't show up on a spreadsheet. If you understand this early, you make better decisions. If you don't, you usually learn it under pressure. And on the surface, contract labor, it looks really attractive. You pay for it when you need it. You're not carrying payroll when work slows down. You can scale up, you can scale down without the long-term commitment. Especially early on, that flexibility feels safe. And sometimes it is, but there's often a trade-off that gets missed. When you rely heavily on contract labor, you're buying capacity, not ownership. You get output, but you're not always getting alignment. Contractors are professionals. Many of them do very good at what they do, but they're running their own business alongside of yours rather than running yours with you. They have other clients, other priorities, other constraints, and that doesn't make them bad partners. It just means their incentives are different. And over time, that difference shows up. Schedules can slip more easily working with other clients. Communication takes more effort. Accountability has to be managed instead of assumed. None of that's catastrophic. It just becomes part of the operating reality. Full-time labor, though, creates a very different dynamic. When someone's in-house, they're not just executing tasks. They're absorbing context. They're understanding how decisions connect to your vision. Learn how timing affects costs. They start anticipating the issues instead of simply reacting to them because they're not a part of the business full-time. That continuity is really hard to replicate with contract labor. We see this very clearly with interior design. At Exeter, we have in-house interior designers, and that was an intentional decision. Could we contract that work out? Absolutely, others do. But having designers in-house means they understand our timelines, they understand our cost structure, they understand how this decision impacts 3 others down the line. They're not just designing something that looks good, they're designing with awareness of schedule, budget, and constraints. And because they're part of the team, they tend to care more about the overall client experience, not just the individual small scope of work. And that really matters. In our business, client satisfaction is the most important thing. And that satisfaction is not just about aesthetics. It's about expectations, it's about timing, it's about cost and follow through. When people are embedded in the business, they feel that ownership over the experience in a way that's extremely difficult to replicate otherwise. Of course, full-time labor comes with its own pressures. Payroll does not turn off when work slows down. You're taking care of other people's families. Training takes time. Management becomes a real responsibility. You're not just paying for output, you're investing in people. You're investing in their skills, in their family, and in their life. So this decision is not really just about cost. It's about where do you want stability and where do you want flexibility. In a capital-intensive business like building, this really matters. Cash flow's uneven. Work comes in waves, timelines shift, and pressure always shows up when things don't go as planned. If everything's contracted, you may have flexibility, but you have way less control when things get stressful. Whereas if everything's full-time, you might have that control, but you are carrying fixed costs that do not care what the market is doing around you. Most healthy businesses land somewhere in the middle. As a construction business, ours definitely lands in the middle. We keep the core functions in-house. That work requires judgment, continuity, and a deep understanding of how the business actually operates and aligns to our vision of customer satisfaction. And we use contract labor where flexibility matters more than long-term ownership. You see this a lot in the aspects of actually building the house versus managing the build and managing the clients. The mistake that I see made far too often is drifting way too far in either direction. I've seen businesses rely too heavily on contractors and wonder why their quality feels inconsistent, why their timelines aren't getting met, and why the same issues keep repeating as if they don't care. I've also seen businesses hire full-time roles too early, and then they feel trapped by that overhead. The overhead controls their every thought. Neither approach fails all at once, it fails slowly. And this is where that intentionality of choice really matters. You have to be clear about what parts of the business need ownership and what parts need capacity. Ownership shows up in how problems get solved when no one else is watching. Capacity shows up in how quickly that work gets done. Both are important, but they serve different purposes. The choice also changes what leadership looks like and what ownership look like. When most of your labor is contracted, leadership becomes about coordination. You're aligning schedules with someone else's businesses, expectations, and handoffs. When more of that labor is full-time, leadership becomes personal development of people. You're building those people who grow within your business to reach their own goals, to to have their vision fit within your vision. And those are very different roles and expectations, and it requires very different energy. It's also a long-term impact. Businesses built mostly on contract labor tend to stay reactive for longer. Businesses with strong in-house teams can become proactive over time. Neither is right or wrong. Both need you to be intentional about which mode you are choosing. The real risk is letting the structure get formed by default, without thought, without conscious decision-making. Hiring contractors can feel easier, where hiring full-time staff feels exciting because it means there's growth in the business. Both choices, they make sense. The problems with either direction you go can show up later, when the pressure hits, when the structure that you chose doesn't really support what your business needs or the vision that you have for your business. So when you're thinking about contract versus full-time, please do not start with cost. Start with how you want your business to behave. Think about how you want your business to be structured and what goals you have in the future so that you can make a conscious, correct decision on how to define it. Where do you want reliability? Where do you want flexibility? And where does your own time create the most leverage? These answers will change as the business grows. You have to spend time reevaluating this. What made sense early on may not make sense now. So revisiting this is part of operating well. If you're building something that is meant to last, which is our goal, right? Staffing decisions are not just about today. They shape the kind of organization you're building over a long period of time. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. If something in this video piqued your interest, or you just want to learn more about anything I mentioned, feel free to drop a comment and we'll get back to you. Till then, I'll see you next time.